All right, welcome back to Gators Gameday Live. Seth Varnadore, joined by Bud Davis. And we are here to, we already had a post game show, but we'll review Miami a little bit more here. Have some film, have some stats. We'll talk kind of where does Florida go from here. Just a few options Bud laid out earlier this week. Thought were worth some discussion. And then we'll talk about this game against Samford really quickly, just to give you guys an idea of, okay, this is kind of what you can expect to see from them. So, but has the Miami game gotten any better for you as you've been able to watch it, or has it been more frustrating? I think you're muted, Bud.
Kind of yeah. There we go. Amateur hour. I think both. There are things that are extremely frustrating going back and rewatching this game and looking at the numbers and we talked about what we thought we needed to do going into it and just not seeing any of that is kind of surprising. But then also I think there's a little bit more appreciation for Miami just played really well, especially on offense. So I think I've come around to more frustrated with our offense, less frustrated with our defense.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw up kind of the
What about
play
you, Seth?
calling. I'm with you. I thought you go back and watch it. That defensively, Kim Ward I think just played really really well and made some tough throws. Now Florida busted a little bit, but yeah, offensively, and we've got some film to watch. Just some of the sequencing of play calling and some of the third down play calls I wasn't a huge fan of, and that kind of got you out of the game. But there a lot of it was just like you got
Yeah.
whipped up front and didn't execute when you had chances to as well. So some stuff was there that they just didn't block very well, but then there's other stuff where it's like, I don't really like that call. So they probably wanted some of those back. But here's Florida's offense. You put this together, and you've got some nice notes here. EPA per play, very bad.
Yeah. So the purple is really bad, and there's a lot of purple. I mean, be really aggressive, and we had, how you could take advantage of those linebackers being really aggressive and ends being really aggressive. And we thought, like, hey, our POs might be a good fit here. Things like slants, we thought we'd see a lot of those, and we didn't really see a ton of that. So that was kind of disappointing. The deep passes really hurt us. We took a lot of shots. And, that's part of Napier's offense. But Seth, you and I were talking, a lot of those are counterpunch shots that are set up by having an effective run game. We didn't have an effective run game. Because our offensive line, we haven't recruited it well. So then we can't run the wide zone. So then people don't respect it. So then it's not as much of a counterpunch when you do the deep shots. And I think that was really bad. And then, the gap running. We had the one MJ gap run. I think we had a couple other, gap runs,
Yeah.
but we really didn't try much of that, which I was kind of surprised by because it worked so well.
And I got a couple. I think they had kind of
Then,
a
I think
plan.
last is kind of what you hit on the
Yeah, I think they had a plan to do some more gap stuff, but I think because there's 3 or 4 instances in the first half where they go to kind of a pin pull type scheme. It only hit the one time, but then in the second half, I think they stayed the game. They had to kind of get out of that and try to throw the ball a little bit more. But yeah, it was just not a great day for the offense, and we've got some tape to watch here in a second. But defensively, we can go ahead and kind of look at that now. Not all terrible. A
one
lot
thing that
bad, but
pops
there's
out
some
on this
better.
is Miami played a lot of man.
Yeah, back here. Yeah, Miami was in a good bit of man coverage, 15% or 15% more relative use to normal teams. But that's not something that is super surprising either.
No, not at all.
All right, so let's look at the Florida defense
All
against
right.
the
You want to
Miami
jump over to the
offense.
Miami one?
Yeah. So go ahead and take it through this one, bud.
And a lot of these are green, which is good for Miami, bad for Florida. Played pretty good on designed runs, which was interesting. I don't remember exactly feeling that way, but we're we're on the wrong side of EPA there for our defense. But the success rate's pretty good there, and there's just really not much to be happy about, so that kind of stands out. They really killed us in the passing game, and if you look at the middle of the field close stuff, you and I looked. We talked to a guy from StatsBomb that we know, and he gave us some of the dots from the all 22. So we got to look at that, and we just got crushed on the cover 3, really bad. And so I think we'll probably touch on that a little bit. But we did good against the running back runs. We got crushed pretty badly on the scrambles and the QB runs. So that's tough.
Yeah, and cover. It seemed like at times, and we'll watch the film here in a second, that they were playing so high over the top to try not to give up explosives that you end up still giving them up because there's so much room between your linebackers and your safeties, right? Which I don't think they want that much separation, and we'll get to the film here now. But one thing that kind of sticks out to me is, Miami last year did not throw to the tight end a ton. They got the ball to the tight end a little bit more often, and they were really successful at it, which wasn't something they did at all really last year. So that was kind of a little different wrinkle, and they got it to them a lot, easy throws in the flat, things like that. So that was kind of one thing that was a little bit different than last year, I think. So let's watch some film now. All right, so we're going to go kind of sequentially here. I just pulled stuff that was, good, some bad. Just I also wanted to talk through all Florida fans or saw the comments from Lance Guidry saying that these are the 5 plays they like to run, and we knew they were going to run them, and they ran them all the first 5 plays. That's a lie. That's not what happened. So every team has base concepts they like, and teams prepare for the stuff they run a ton. That's kind of, to me, that was negative recruiting through the media, and a lot of people ate it up because they're upset. But so here's the first play of the game.
Soundbite.
Yeah, here's the first play of the game. You actually get it's a run pass option, but it's a pre-snap decision, right? So right here, they're running zone in here. He has the option to throw the quick throw out here if he wants. Right, so right here, they're running split zone inside. Throws it to Wilson. Gets man coverage. Perfect, right? Run pass option, we talked about. It's not your kind of make the decision after the play run pass option, but it's still a run pass option, right? So you get the first down there. You get second down.
And I really like that one. That first one's got that curl flat combination, and that's, we don't see that actually a ton for Napier. I feel like that stands out. That's a staple quick passing game option that we just don't hit that much.
Yeah, and with the motion attached to the run game, it's a nice, easy throw. It's a natural pick. I thought it was that's a great starter here. So then 2nd and 6 come back. I put this one on here because Florida last year was not a ton of gap scheme. Here they had some gap scheme on, and Miami just blew it up at the point of attack. But that's kind of a tendency breaker. Florida was not a big, heavy gap scheme last year. So gap scheme is down and pulling guys, right? You got down blocks and pullers from the backside. Florida was not a ton of gap scheme last year. So, just seeing that in the first 4 plays, it's already, that sound bite is already, null and void in my mind. That's the RPO off the slant is something I don't think they ran last year. Gap wasn't a big part of it last year. But anyways, the first 3rd and 5 here. So the idea here is pretty much the same as the Montrell Johnson run later. The idea is pin him, which if you're flat, you pin him right there. And then you're pulling So you have him kind of acting as a puller, getting the corner, and then you have the guard getting whatever shows up here, right? So right here, let's say this is the idea on the board. Now, is it the best call? I don't know if this is the best call, but on the board, the idea is I'm down, I block him. He's there, he's here. On the board, it looks good. Now, they couldn't execute it. Not only do you miss this down block, you miss this block here too, which even with missing that block, you'd have almost a chance. But now this thing's dead on arrival. And you see this missed block causes this puller not to get out. So he should be here. He should be pulling to there. There's your lane to run. They don't execute it well. Now, is it my favorite call on 3rd and 5 when, like I think we've said, if you got a senior quarterback, you got to, that you feel like you trust? Maybe not. But this is the idea is the same as the Montrell Johnson run. You want to pin and pull guys. So the same kind of where you pin and then pull really 2 guys from Montrell Johnson.
In these 3rd and mediums.
Yes. And there was a couple calls I didn't like, a couple ones that, they just didn't execute very well. So here's Miami's first drive. I think I put this play on here because I thought this was one of the bright spots here. A guy that showed up a couple times on film. Like, this is a tough play. And Pup Howard was a guy that I thought played pretty well. He flashed a few times. Like, this is a tough play in space that I don't think they make last year. And he's got another one later that, you feel like you hit on him for sure, right? So that's good. Got to be feeling pretty good going into the rest of the year. You feel like you've hit there. Now, here's one where I don't know. I think there's some miscommunication here. They got a blitz on. So it's very possible with the back going out, he goes out with the back. I don't know if he's thinking I have to replace him, but that's kind of what it looks like to me. He sees the back go out. He's thinking I have to replace this guy leaving, but you don't really need to do that. And he leaves. I don't know if he's chasing the other backer or the back, but he leaves, and there's your void in the quarterback run game. And those are the kind of things that kind of hurt you early on. I thought you played okay. So here's a good example of them playing a good cover 3. And you'll see it a wide view here, but this is they do a nice job here negotiating everything. Get some late pressure, force him to throw it away. And you can see here from the wide view, they do a pretty good job with all these routes distributing that. Now, with this being in this area of the field, this guy can't really get 40 yards deep. Like, he'd be in the first row. So I feel like at times the safeties are getting too deep, and we'll see that later to the open field. But here's a good rep of, cover 3 or a cover 3 type look. And then nice rep of a run game up front. Get the ball out of his hands, get off the field, get the penalty. And then here it looks like you're just in man coverage. This block down, I think he loses his eyes for a second, seeing the block, looking for something else coming out because he's chasing the back, and then just loses the tight end across the field here. So I think it looked like man coverage across the board and just missed it. So just some coverage busts, some good design by Miami. But so here's another one. Florida's getting to their boot and their flood stuff. They didn't do this. They didn't do it this way very often, though, last year, where they're bringing the receiver from the other side on like a hide route. This was not something they did a ton last year, even though this is like a boot action they did a lot. They didn't do it this way. So here's kind of a small wrinkle.
And I really liked this.
Yes, I agree.
Like, this is how I thought we'd handle, like, getting out, taking away their edges, making them be less aggressive from attacking up to attacking out. I thought we'd see a lot more of this.
I thought, going back and rewatching, I thought the first and like P calls, they call them first down in possession. I thought those calls were not too bad throughout the game. like good drive starters, but then I thought the third down calls left something to be desired. So we talked. Bud showed RPOs were effective.
I think we're on the same page in this, but 100% Billy called these plays. This felt and looked like a Billy Napier game.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
100%.
I think so. There, I mean, the same like consistent issues, like, and you hope some of these issues work themselves out as you have a guy. Okay, now you have a quarterback year 2. Some of the I thought some of the same patterns they fall into, where it's first down shot, second down try to get in third and manageable, and you end up in third and long. There was some of that pattern, which has been kind of his bad pattern in the past in terms of play calling. There's some of that. So I'd imagine he's still calling it. But here you got another RPO, again, pre-snap, where I've got the go route. This is something they did last year as well. So I've got a run called in here, but if I like the matchup, I can throw it. We talked about throwing some RPOs.
You got a screen up top.
Yeah, and then you got the screen up top, and then you nice back shoulder here. Right, so I can work either. So I've got some options or that, right? So good back shoulder throw, nice catch. I thought Badger had some flashes as well, so there's another guy in the portal that you feel pretty good on. DK Badger, Pup Howard, all, I think, acquitted themselves nicely in their first game as Gators. So 1st and 10. Come back, decide to take a shot. This is a Y cross shot. This is one where I thought earlier this week Shane Matthews did a really good breakdown on this play. So if you haven't watched his show from, I think, Monday or Tuesday, he did a really good job. He got the all-22. But this is just a ball you've got to hit closer to the left upright. He's got to get across. But also, if you don't like that post shot, which you have it, they're just running their Y cross stuff here. So they're running it kind of with the deep post, but he's got the cross, and he's actually going to motion out, and he's going to end up running a dig back over here after the motion. So there's a motion, then a dig. If you didn't like the deep post, the dig, you'll see here, could have stuck it on the dig in this hole right here too. But you take the shot, and these are the ones, if you take them, you got to hit it and take him away from the defensive back, right? You don't want to throw it too vertical, let him run away from that guy. So both the posts, I thought, you get another one open later as well. If you hit either of those, the game changes a little bit. Now, it's always hard. There's always kind of a butterfly effect, but going 7-7 with hitting a deep post early probably changes the calculus a little bit, but I don't know if the defense would be able to hold up the whole game, but we'll see. So third down, this is one I didn't really like. So this is a third down call. I wasn't a big fan of.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this concept, because I think this is like failing on these third and mediums with spacing when we know they're probably playing man is like the biggest blunder of the game, right? On our offensive side.
Yeah, so we went and looked. Bud pulled it from last year when Miami was like 3rd and 7 plus. They're running man, and they're running it's not, half the time, but they're running it a ton more. They're running man, and they're blitzing a ton more than average team would. So Florida tries to have their cake and eat it too. He's going to motion. He's going to run the go. You're just running a spacing concept, which is great against zone, and then you have slant, right, as your man beater. But I think they just decided, hey, we're going to bracket Eugene Wilson if he's back by himself. So you get a bracket on the man on the man beater, and then you've got kind of a zone beater, and they don't really play zone, right? And if they do, it's some type of main match where they're not spot dropping, right? So these kind of get ate up, and you're forced to check it down to the back. And especially, this was one thing that now that I'm thinking about it, and I see later, I don't know. They must have thought they had something into the boundary because they threw some. Like, I would much rather have the spacing to the field and the slant to the boundary. They must have thought they had something going formation in the boundary because they do it on another third down here in a second, which I would have much rather had the throw to the field if you could. But they must have seen something on film study that they thought if we go formation in the boundary, they're gonna, the way they line up is going to be advantageous for us. Didn't seem to work out. So not sure if Miami changed something there or if it. Go ahead.
Spacing is not really good pass concept that teams from the college level to NFL use all the time. It's really effective. One of the problems is predictability. And so this isn't Billy has a bad scheme. It's Billy's pretty predictable. Like we've been kind of talking about this internally. Third and medium, and you get 3 on one side. You get 3 receivers on one side. You're almost certainly getting spacing. And we did it 3 times on third down this game. And that's just, you can't have a tendency that strong. And especially in such critical situations. It was interesting. And it's a tough balance because you want to make it easy for your QB. So you have a lot of window dressing so it looks different for the defense so they don't know it's coming. But it definitely felt like Miami knew it was coming.
Yeah, and this is something we saw, like, just off the top of my head. Tennessee, they ran spacing a ton. South Carolina, they ran it a ton and had success with it. But into the boundary here, I don't know. It's tough. It's really compresses. So not only do you get, like, you're not getting like spot drops, but it's also really compressed into the boundary. So I'm not sure, what they thought they would get there out of that. So you end up having to punt. Thought this was a really good job. At times you got interior pressure, and when you did, that's when you were able to get Ward kind of off his spot a little bit. And then Cam James does a great job chasing him down, forcing the throw across his body. Great catch by Shamar James, but this is just something you did not get enough of, this interior penetration. And I don't know if that's because they rotated too many guys. I thought that was one kind of strange thing that, they rotated guys a ton on both sides of the ball. And that was one thing that, I guess if they're pretty even in camp, you let them roll out there and see what happens. But, they're even rotating tackles a lot. And you feel like if you have a pretty good idea who's your best guy, just let them roll out there.
Yeah, and I think it's a sign of not having elite talent on our roster. We've got a lot of guys have sat there for all the snaps.
Yeah. All right, so you get the ball back after the turnover. First play, I just going back and watching, like, there was some stuff on the perimeter. They were not clean on the perimeter. Like here, little screen, right? If I beat him out here and kind of can pin this guy, especially because this is a pretty good job right here by Jackson. If I can just pin that guy inside, now Wilson can get the edge, and I've got a really good play, right? Because especially this safety's coming inside out. But I kind of, right here, I kind of wait on him, let him beat me to the spot and turn this thing back into the safety. Whereas if I've got this guy, if I'm turned and have him pinned right there, now Wilson's hitting the sideline, and I've got a really good play, which is something we talked about before the game, is attacking the perimeter. But Miami was able to kind of, in terms of just aggressiveness and getting downhill, able to take this away, turn the ball back inside. Instead of having a really good play, you have like a 3-yard gain. So then you come back with kind of a similar look on the perimeter here. Post. That's not a great post. Post. Wheel. Bubble. Right after throwing the bubble, it's hard to tell. We try to look. You may have this if the corner's turned inside with the post. We got the dots on this one. It wasn't super conclusive. So I don't know if you have this. If you do, you got to throw it with anticipation. You got to throw it right now and hit him in this hole. Doesn't like it, pulls it down, is able to get a first down. So you're moving the ball a little bit.
Yeah, the dots on that one have their safety coming on. They do that. They hand that off pretty well. Yeah. So we didn't think it was as bad of a miss once we got that.
So here, I wanted to put this one on here just as a good example of like, all right, so running wide zone here, here, to here, 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 2 off the back. The quarterback should hold them with any type of boot action, right? Like right here on the board, this looks pretty good. Like you feel pretty good that, all right, I can get these guys reached and I can get up to the backer. So I'm not sure exactly what happens. Right here, even, it looks okay. The guard, it looks like the center's kind of getting him reached, but the guard stays and helps and kind of sticks. The backer gets over the top. The guard never gets to him. And then backside, you see this. We don't ever get that cut off. You could even cut on the backside, but you don't get that cut off. And you get an unblocked backer in the backside end making the play here. And they're bringing 2 off the backside edge for the boot. So this is a play that right now looks like, I think you feel like you got a chance. But just kind of a good example, I thought, of kind of the lack of execution up front and just getting kind of whipped up front. And that was kind of like, there's a lot of stuff that on the board looks pretty good that you just couldn't do. So here we come back to a 3rd down, 3rd and 5. This is another one where you're going into the boundary. And this is one I would much prefer to the field just for, you got a corner route, kind of a snag. This is a classic air raid staple. This is Y corner. But the spacing's a little tough. And you've got kind of the same thing you ran on the first play down here, a short stick. So you're just running like stick over here and then Y corner over here. But the corner is, first of all, I think Mertz is late. And you'll see it from the back view. He's late. But I'd much rather have this route to the field because this is kind of a short. So right here, ball probably needs to be coming out. He's starting to settle here. Probably ball needs to come out to here. The corner is also really flat. Like, we should be taking this as an angle here. Let the ball bring you back to the sideline. So that gives the quarterback all this room to throw. So as I come out of my break, if I'm really high to like the back pylon, now the quarterback has all this room to throw the ball, and the safety's got to stay inside because I could still break. It's going to be harder for him to get over the top. If I go flat, now the quarterback's just got this small bit of area to throw because the safety's getting over the top, right? So not a super clean route and probably a little late on the throw. Kind of kills that play. And you can see it from the backside. Like if I'm high angle, the safety's got to play with a high angle, and now I can throw the ball pretty much anywhere here in that front section of the inside of the end zone. But now I'm really flat. I got to throw the ball on a line, and it's got to be a perfect throw, and he just wasn't able to make it, and it was probably a little late. So not great. And then also, why in the boundary? I don't know. That's the one where I'm not sure. They must have seen something on film to work these throws into the boundary because you would like to have a little bit more room, you'd think, on those. But all right, another great play here by Pup Howard. This is one I think like you walk in. If you're Miami playing Florida last year, you walk in on this. So good call on the blitz. Great job by Pup Howard getting over and making this play, and you force a field goal. So really good job there. And this is probably the last sequence. So here's another example of pin pull. Good block here. So this is kind of similar to Montrell's run later. I'm pinning and I'm pulling 2 guys. lose the block late, linebacker gets there, but you still pick up 5. You get yourself in a nice 2nd and 5. Now 2nd and 5, they decide they want to take a shot. They get what they want. Protection's pretty good. Just another one. If you can get it, if you can put this thing, here, you've got a chance. Right? Just more, he threw it more towards the middle of the goalpost. Need to throw him away from that corner. Then you get 3rd and 5. And I thought this was kind of the game, really, looking back on it, these next 2 plays. So here you've got the motion with the bubble. And then you've got this just zone inside. Right here, again, like, you've got some numbers in the box. Now they go split zone, so you don't have to worry about him. So you got some numbers in the box right here. If we get that double team right there, he's there. He's going to push him out of the hole. He's climbing the backer. This backer plays over the top. If he doesn't fall down and can just stay on this double team, there's your lane to run in, right? As he plays over the top for boot or pull. So if you can block there, you've got a lane to run. Yeah, they did not play very well. And that could be because Miami has a good front, but yeah, it was not great. And that was the biggest cause of issues. Here, 4th down, motion him in. You're going to run a bit of a rub. So this was kind of intended to be, if it was man coverage, you'd get a rub out of that. And then backside, they're running drive. So you've got a man beater with the shallow, a zone beater with the dig, man beater here with the rub route, flat route, zone beater with the corner. So not a poorly designed concept. So right here, Miami plays the rub well. They're not in man. So right here, the corner jumps it. So if you don't have pressure in your face right now, you should be able to throw the corner out. Or here, as they jump this across face, you should be able to hit the dig behind it. You can see back from this view here. As soon as the corner takes this, I've got this corner out breaking out here with a ton of leverage. But I'm kind of late here and get a hand on me. And then if you don't like that, if I'm able to get clean, when he goes square in, bang, put it on him, and there's your 1st down, right? So late, almost gets picked, and you also get a holding call. So not great. This, I think, is a good example of the issues in cover 3. Like, it's just the safety's playing the ball's on the 40. The safety's playing, feet at the 10. So he's, 30 yards off the ball. And the linebacker's at 30 or 27. So there's a nice little window between the 2 levels of the defense right there that they were able to exploit. So I don't know if they want him to be pinning down on this quicker. I would have to imagine they don't want him playing so far off the ball, but that's I thought this was kind of indicative of the issue. You'll see a kind of the same look later where he's not super doing a great job of pinning down on that. And then here's one where this was kind of a new look against man coverage. Here, where you're running kind of flood here, but you also kind of got a little mesh action with the back. So you get to kind of your normal flood, but this also some eye candy that, I saw Shane Matthews say, right, he's got to be there. This is another one he broke down again. He did a really good job talking through it. So watch his breakdown as well. But, if he's flat right now and can outflank this, hopefully you have an angle to throw that thing to him. And then you just got to try to
Mertz isn't a statue.
Yeah.
Like
you got to try to find
any type of movement.
Yeah. Like this is the ones that we talked about Cam Ward, like finding different arm angles. He was really good at that. Like he will probably find a way to complete this ball here, right? So that's, the unfortunate part. This is a new wrinkle, and I think this was another 1st and 10 play. I think if you want to say that Russ Callaway had a big part of the game, I wonder if he was involved in 1st and 10, because that's where, like, 1st in possession. So definitely a new one. First play on the field. So first play of a possession, I thought were some pretty good calls and were a little different. So, maybe it was there. Maybe maybe that's where they put the wrinkles, but end up not completing it. So you're in 2nd and 10. Really good job, like really good call on the screen. You end up, I don't think they block anybody on this screen. So right here, you got a convoy. You've got 4 for 2, really, and they don't block any of them. So I thought the call was good. Wasn't executed great.
It sounds
and he's got to slow down. If this is clean, he can just get vertical really quick. He gets run down by this guy back here, which I guarantee if they're racing, that guy ain't winning. So having to slow down because you didn't get the block is an issue. So then you got 3rd and 3 here. And this is one where you run the same kind of action out to the field. It almost looks like spacing here, but the tight end's going to run a corner. So it's really that snag white corner play. So he's sitting in the hole right here, man. Like, if he gets outflanked, throw this flat route, right now. And this is one where you see Mertz he looked like he's really hurrying this thing. There's no pressure.
His footwork's off, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no pressure here. Like, if I really read this thing out, I can hit him and he's running. He breaks the tackle. He's still running. So, I thought so that's kind of, seeing that, it's like, okay, he's starting to see ghost a little bit. And then here's, the play of the best play of the offense. You get Miami misaligned, but it's just the same as we've seen a couple times, pin and pull. And they do a really good job negotiating it, really good down block. You also catch Miami, I think, in a stunt. And then Montrell looked healthy on this run. So
yeah, I saw his speed. He was like 21, something pretty fast.
Yeah, 21, one of the top 5 of the weekend, I believe. So, and then here's another example of just like, you're super deep. How deep is your safety? The ball is on the 47. Where's the safety when this ball is caught? Again, he's 22-ish.
Yeah.
So again, your safety is about 30 yards deep, and so I just don't know if they want him that deep when they're rolling to this. Do they want him to pin down more? Are they worried about the shots over the top because they gave up so many explosive last year? Well, it's just like, these guys are spot dropping to nowhere. There's nothing for them they're dropping just to grass. And then there's just a lot of room between, the levels. Now, Ward made some really good throws, and like, he anticipates that throw really well, but this is, just, I feel like it's too deep. And your numbers prove out that anytime they were middle field closed, it wasn't great for the most part. Here's one I think. So they look like they hit the top. It looks like he hits the top of his hat, and they do have a stack check called top hat. And when they run top hat, one is not. They say if one stays one. So here, if one stays outside. So if they cross, it's different. But if one stays one, it's man. One stays one and 2 stays 2. It's man. So here, 1 stays 1, 2 stays 2. He runs out with it. I think he might think he's got 1 as well. He widens out, and this is just a bust. If that's the check, I think that was it looked like he hit the top of his head. They have a stack check called top hat. They called it after he motioned out here, and this is similar to a stack, so they may call it there. That's a guess on my part, but it certainly looks like he's playing man on 1. If he has eyes on 2, even if he turns out here, if he has eyes back on 2, the way Ward throws this ball, he doesn't throw it there, he throws it on a rope. I think you have a chance to make the play if you're a little bit more cognizant of that. But if not, you've probably got this. You've got one over the top. You got one inside. You're probably not throwing that thing. So just an end to a poor half of execution there. So that's the Miami game. It wasn't much better the second time around, but I think some parts you feel a little bit better about. But overall, it's a lot of the same issues for the past 3 years. So I think that kind of leads us into the next part of our conversation here, or you kind of posit, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah. Yeah, and because where is Florida at? What does Florida have to do? Because the standard is let's win a championship. And how does Florida do that? How can we do that in 5 years? And it's really hard to do because there's a lot of programs that we play that have their act together now. Tennessee, we're in a tougher SEC. We got to play Texas. Georgia's ascendant. Miami's doing great. A lot of these programs we have to compete against, not just on the field, but in recruiting, have their NIL figured out. They've got their boosters, coaches, and athletic departments really well aligned. And it's a tall order, if Florida is, at that second, third tier in NIL, and, how do you attract a tier one coach? What are they going to want to? Why would they want to come here? We've been in the gutter for 15 years. Kids don't even know who Urban Meyer is. They didn't see us win a title. So how does Florida actually get back? We don't have that level of prestige that I think a lot of our fans assume we do. Our state is really picked over in recruiting. It's not a footprint that we dominate anymore. So I think in order for Florida to get back, a lot of things have to happen. We've got to get our NIL figured out, and we've got to become tier one at that. And we should be able to. You look at any athletics giving, and nobody gives more than Florida boosters. I mean, consistently year in, year out, we're top 3. But we really haven't embraced NIL to get us there.
No, it certainly doesn't seem that way. You want me to throw up the 3 options and you can go through and kind of what you think are the 3 options going forward for Florida? And I do have kind of a 4th option I'd like to discuss with you as we get to it. But
let's do it.
Here you go. Viable pathway for the rest of 2024. Option 1.
Yeah, so this is like, yeah, you do. Read them off.
Option 1, just fire Billy Napier. And you're keeping Scott Strickland in this one. Option 2, you fire Scott Strickland, but keep Napier for the time being. I'm assuming that would be a let the next guy decide his fate type deal. And option 3, fire both Napier and Strickland. Clean house, start over, find an AD, find a coach. Probably in that order, right? So. Yeah, which option are you?
It's pretty tough. Florida needs a lot of different things. There's pros and cons to each of these. I think all the fans, if you ask them, they're going to be like, well, do option 3 or do option 1. But Florida doesn't have a university president. We also probably need to hire a GM. So that's a curveball in all of this. I think the downside, if you fire Napier, we kind of talked about that, is if you still have this tier 2 NIL and you can't attract a tier 1 splash hire like Lane Kiffin, then you're pairing a tier 2 head coach hire with a tier 2 NIL and a program that's in the dumps in recruiting and on-field prestige and national, prestige. Do we really think it's going to bounce up? And, there is the possibility that maybe you make this hire and it is a splash hire, and the head coach has such leadership that he is able to galvanize our boosters and our athletics department and get our NIL figured out, and we turn the ship around. I think that, we've been doing the fire hire dice roll game for 15 years, whatever, 10 years, 14. So it's tough to imagine that it's automatically going to solve things. At this point, I'm pretty skeptical. There's no such thing as a surefire hire. And I think we could easily end up back here in 3 years. And I think this is the most likely option for what's going to happen.
It certainly seems that way.
Just
I
kind
think
of
you're
depressing.
yeah, you've already heard some rumblings that money's being raised for a buyout. Who knows if that's true? But yeah, I would imagine this would probably be, with the upheaval at president, this would probably be the most likely option if they're making a move this year. Now, hopefully, the team turns it around and they get it all figured out here, and this isn't something you have to worry about. But based on previous seasons, it doesn't seem to be moving in a promising direction. So these are conversations people are having. So option 2, you have just fire Scott Strickland. Now, to you, what's kind of the best? What is the thought there? Is it just, is your big, I guess my question would be, is your issue with Strickland more of his hires, or more that he has not been able to have a coherent NIL strategy seemingly, or kind of spearhead that when schools are kind of allowed to be in on that? Is that his biggest flaw to you, or is it the bad hires?
Yeah, it's both of them. I think it's more the NIL. I think the bad hires are, the guys only hired Dan Mullen and Billy Napier in his entire career. We brought in a pretty green AD, and he's looked like it. But really, it's the NIL. Florida should be one of the top in the country in NIL. And, the fact that we're behind, programs that we should not be behind is pretty concerning. And so this option, I posted it. It's definitely a hot take, but part of this option would be, I think you keep Billy Napier through next season. So you fire Scott Strickland. This gives you a lot of time to bring in a really high quality AD, because you're not trying to get an AD and a head coach in place before January so that they can prep the team for next fall. You just say, hey, we're going to roll with Billy Napier through 2025. We know we're going to take some lumps as we rebuild this thing, but it's almost like how you rebuild in pro sports where, you got to kind of tank a little bit, but, bank your NIL money, tell your boosters, hey, we're not going to win anything. We know we're not going to win anything under Billy Napier. Rather than paying this massive buyout, let's have him coach through the tough times. We're paying him a bunch of money to coach. Let's let him coach. Save your NIL money, put together a war chest, get your AD and boosters all aligned for the next guy, kind of how Georgia did, as they knew they were going to fire Mark Richt and bring in Kirby Smart. Just use the time on the clock to set yourself up for success for the next guy. And then, 2025, when you do fire Billy and pursue that coaching search, you can probably get a tier 1 candidate, because you're going to say, hey, we've got all this aligned. Our boosters have been saving money and setting it aside for this NIL war chest. We're going to be best in the country. We've got all this money. This is part of a bigger structured plan. And I think you have some potential to get some buy-in. I'm also going to say, I think this is a total pie in the sky thing that is never going to happen, because we don't have a university president. And nobody is going to tank in college football actively. We've never seen anybody do anything even close to this, where you just have a lame duck coach for essentially 2 seasons so you can save NIL money. This is a wild thing, but, sometimes it's fun to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And I think there's some creative things to this and some interesting things to think about with this one.
Yeah, I do think having I feel like the Strickland has been very reactive and not super, at least in football, not super forward thinking. It would be nice to have somebody a little bit more forward thinking, really kind of get on this GM, because I think Rob says it well, and this is something we've been saying. Like, you're going to need you're going to need somebody with some front office experience that understands the salary cap and understands how to build a roster with monetary restrictions. So you'll need some type of general manager here soon. Some teams are already, pursuing that. So it would be nice to have somebody with a kind of looking forward in that sense and pursuing that. Now, this is also the next option is one that Rob and I think many people are hoping for, and that would be just clean house, start over, and see what happens. So what's kind of appealing to you on this one?
This is a tough one, but it would be before January, we need to fire our AD, hire a new AD, hire a head coach, which is real. Those are really fast turnarounds, and we don't have a UF president right now. So we'd have to have the boosters, like board of trustees, UAA, boosters, everybody kind of get in line really fast. And when you compress timelines, sometimes it makes it hard to get your tier one guys. Like, are you going to be able to attract a tier one AD to come here during football season, the busiest time of the year? That's pretty tough. And then, you're also, if you're firing Billy Napier, you're paying a buyout, and that's money that's got to come from somebody's pocket. People like, oh, the athletic department is going to pay. The athletic department's got to pay revenue share starting next year. Budgets are going to get a little bit tighter. These buyouts aren't as going to be easy to do. And now people are even talking about player buyouts. That could be something we see if this House settlement finalizes. So, I think this is probably the second most likely option, but I'm also pretty skeptical that this is what's going to happen. I would be very shocked if Florida fired Scott Strickland this year.
Yeah, like we said earlier, the presidential situation, I don't think an interim president, even though he's been president before, is going to really upset the apple cart too much. I have an option 4 to present that we've kind of discussed briefly.
Does it do nothing?
Off pod? No, it does not do nothing. It is now this. It is. And there's a couple of different ways. So it could be option 4, it could be option 4 and 5. But take football away from the athletic department. Don't let the athletic department run football. Whether it's don't let Scott Strickland make the next hire. You could have him on a board that makes the hire, but I think the NIL is a bigger part. So you could just have football be a separate entity, have a board of directors comprised of, past coaches like Spurrier, Urban, past players, guys that have played and coached. Shane Matthews would be a good guy. He's played, he's coached, whoever you want. And then Florida's also got ties to NFL executives like Rand Carthon, Howie Roseman, also agents like Trace Armstrong. Leverage those connections to build kind of a board of directors that oversees football. They could hire a GM. They can make coaching decisions. I just think we're letting school administrators that know nothing about football hire football coaches. And you see most of the time it doesn't work, which a lot of times I think people with a little more knowledge, it could be a little bit better process. So that to me, forward thinking is football is so big. You're asking, school administrators to hire CEOs for, $100 million company. Like these football teams make a lot of money. So you're asking middle managers to hire the CEOs for an industry they know nothing about. To me, if you could want to be forward thinking, you split off football, you have a board of directors, and they kind of help. They hire GMs. They make decisions on hiring, firing coaches. We see massive companies do this all the time.
It's a great option.
And I think that would be a really interesting way to do it. And you get a little bit more expertise in the system, because I just don't think the area I think most ADs miss on is hiring a football coach. And it's because most of them have no clue about what makes a good football coach. Strickland got super impressed by a bunch of binders. And how organized. That's great. But does he know anything about scheme or what type of scheme fits best? He doesn't know anything about that. So I don't know. I just think that would be interesting. Just split football off. It's too big to be under the athletic department. Let it be run, like a large corporation almost, where you have a board of directors and people that understand the industry, understand what's needed, understand the standards, and they could help you kind of move. And then you could even include the athletic director on the board, just so you have a school administrative voice. But to me, that would be cool.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see it. I think that's. When has Florida ever been the team that's been that forward? Like
I think that's
facilities,
the issue.
anything.
It's
We're
always
always the last to the party, man.
turning like a battleship. And I think that's the biggest issue with the current administration, or really the current group here. It's not a super. I think I heard Andy Staples say not nimble, or it might even been our friend at Gator Dave say not super nimble group. I thought it was a good description.
100%.
Billy Napier is an option. He's raised on the option. His dad was an option coach. He played option football at Furman. Option coaches are usually very systematic. They like to get things set up. They plan it out. They have just think about the triple option. It's dive. They take the dive away. It's pull. They take the pull away. It's pitch. Like there's if-then scenarios. It's like just option football. And so I think when you get thrown a wild card a lot of times, they want to really think through it and have a great plan. And sometimes that's too much. So that's kind of the issue. So any final thoughts on where to go before we take
gotta hop off?
Okay, perfect.
I gotta hop off for Samford. I gotta wake up early tomorrow. I'm gonna go see my dad's. I'm gonna drive up to Varnadore and watch my dad. He's a lawyer. His last court case ever. So
well, there you go.
Drive up.
Travel safe. I'll handle the Samford preview. It won't be long. You're not gonna miss too much.
Let's just
any parting thoughts?
Yeah, we can. No, I don't know. I was kind of thinking, what do I want to see for Samford? And dude, I want to see. Let's see this spread stand and let's see Lagway. Like I just want to see that.
Yeah, I'm just hoping we don't see like McNeese last year, where he just like line up and just run the ball down their throat. Hopefully they spread it out a little bit and let Lagway kind of show what he can do a little bit.
Yeah, I'd love it. All right, have
bud.
a good one.
We'll see you Saturday. Have a safe drive.
All right, see you.
All right, let's finish up here with a little look at Samford. It'll be quick. And there won't be too much to talk about. I don't think this is a great this is not a great Samford team, I don't believe. They've had better ones in the past, but they do some interesting stuff that's not super common. So let's start with what I think is probably their calling card. Chris Hatcher's the head coach. Let's go with the Samford offense here. All right, so Chris Hatcher, obvious mentor to our very own Russ Callaway. Air raid guy, so you're going to see some air raid concepts. They also have a athletic quarterback, so you're going to see some quarterback run game stuff. They lost to West Georgia, I believe. So here's kind of a modern triple option look. West Georgia didn't have too many issues with it. They'll take their shots down the field. They hit some later in this game, missed this one, but you're going to get a lot of air raid stuff. You're going to get some quarterback run game. So they're like quarterback counter. He's a pretty good runner. And you also get some tempo. Notice when this ball's being snapped here. Going for it. Ball's being snapped with like 30 seconds left on the clock. So you're going to get all this mixed with a lot of tempo. Here's a little mesh. So air raid staple. You got mesh here. He's probably running the corner or an out. So you're going to see some of your classic air raid staples like mesh. You'll see Y cross in a second. To me, this is Y cross, dig. Instead of running a go and a flat, they're going to run a hitch and a seam. But it's Y cross, in my opinion. And then defensively, it looks to be a special personnel like a 4-2-5 type look. 4 down, 2 backers, and 5 defensive backs in various configurations. They'll play 2 high coverages. They'll play some 1 high. See, they'll bring safeties into the box and blitz. Nothing outrageous. Florida should be able to move the ball. West Georgia kind of moved the ball up and down the field on them pretty well. I don't think this is going to be as big of a challenge as previous Samford games. Hopefully, see to kind of roll the safety down, bring some pressure. They'll show 2 high at times. They didn't do this often, but they did go to an odd front, walk the end off. So you may see a little bit of that during the game. I think they'll play where they'll play kind of split coverages. So one side will play this, one side will play that. But then they'll also kind of roll to a 1 high look here. So roll into almost a cover 3 here off of a 2 high safety look. And almost try to play it like he's rolling over the top here, and then he's back to the center. Looks kind of like 3. So nothing crazy. This should not be a game where Florida has a ton of issues. Hopefully it's not just kind of a repeat of McNeese where you're really just ran the ball. I think the whole first drive against McNeese, it was just run the ball down the field. Now, you had similar issues in game 1 against Utah offensively where you couldn't run the ball, couldn't pass protect. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think their defense is great, Carl. I believe they gave up 38 points to West Georgia last week. And West Georgia's not like unbelievable powerhouse at that level, I don't believe. I think they're kind of newly coming up into Division 1AA. So wasn't great. Yeah, Samford lost 38-29 to West Georgia last week. So not a great defense. Florida should be able to move the ball and win pretty easily. If there's any struggle, that would be a big disappointment. So that was our look back at Miami. Quick talk about some different options for Florida's future. I thought Bud had some interesting points. And then there's a quick look at Samford. This is a game, should not be a struggle for Florida. Defensively, you've got to be ready for tempo. But if you do that, I think you can handle them pretty easily. Just don't get caught out by the tempo. Don't be surprised by it. And then offensively, I'll be interested to see what DJ Lagway can do in his first start of his career and really extended minutes. Interesting parallel to think about. Ingle Martin, I believe he's a senior starter for Florida. Got knocked out against Miami with a concussion. And Chris Leak took over, and I don't think ever relented. So, possible interesting parallel. I don't know if that's exactly how it'll go, but I just thought it was interesting. Kind of Miami knocks out your starter. Freshman comes in next week, gets his first start. Just an interesting parallel. So, thank you guys for watching Gators Game Day. We'll be back, I believe, at halftime of the Florida game, talking the first half, and then have a quick post-game show as well. And I'd imagine it'll be a lot more fun than last week's, but you never know. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on Saturday.